Welcome back. Today we are talking about business continuity management systems in the banking sector of Saudi Arabia, and we're talking with Khaled Altawily. Khaled, great, lots of information in the first and two segments. I wanted to know if you could elaborate a little bit more on COVID-19 and the challenges that presented the banking sector, and maybe in general too, because let's face it, COVID really changed the way everybody does things these days.
Well, it is not surprising that the maturity of the financial sector in Saudi Arabia is higher than what people are expecting, especially from outside of Saudi Arabia. The central bank itself, it was awarded with the best central bank globally multiple times. And since I mentioned that since 2001, the central bank was mandating to have a business continuity arrangement in place, and they developed their own framework. So it is required from all banks in Saudi Arabia to be at least in maturity level 3. That means all the 75 controls developed, implemented, and practiced. And back to the COVID, before COVID reached the Middle East or Saudi Arabia specifically, it reached Saudi Arabia in March 2020. 2 months before that, we triggered that there is a virus and there is something trending going around in Wuhan city. Mm-hmm. And we started our preparation since January 2020 by having a task force consisting of HR and facility management and safety and security and the business continuity to see and to track the news and to prepare ourselves to develop and update the related pandemic plans that we have, which never been used before in a real or such crisis situation. Then when the virus hit Saudi Arabia, everything was crazy and everything was very fast. The lockdown from one side and working in such vital sector, which is supposed to be 24/7 available, and the concern that we will have, beside the COVID, a financial crisis if the banking sector is not prepared well. Mm-hmm. So all of this resulted into activating the crisis management and having on daily reports. My experience, we had more than 120 reports in the period between March and June to track every single group that we have, every single department. And we are talking about a complex organization that have international presence and more than 1,000 branch, more than 5,000 ATM, more than 10,000 employees and millions of customers. So our experience was excellent. The way that we respond to the crisis was excellent. There was a live crisis command center 24/7 available with 3 shifts, communicating with the other banks, with the central bank, and even with the other governmental bodies such as the Ministry of Interior and the Ministry of Health, which both are leading the situation in Saudi Arabia.
I've got a question for you because you just mentioned something that caught my attention. You said maturity level 3?
Yeah.
That meant all those 75 controls that are documented in that banking standard are developed, implemented, validated. What are the other levels? That caught my attention going, oh, what's that?
Okay. Well, glad you asked. When we have 5 maturity levels, start by 1 where everything is not existing and you deal with it on ad hoc basis. The level 2 where you have some of the requirements in place and some are not. And level 3 where you have everything developed, implemented, maintained, and practiced. And level 4 where you start uh, um, evaluating the effectiveness and the level of compliance. And level 5, where you utilize the peer data and you have a survey and you are looking to the best practices and you go beyond that. It's most likely the same maturity tool utilized by the cyber world and the information
Mhm.
security world.
I was just curious because you hadn't mentioned various levels before, and I was like, "Ooh, what's that?" As soon as he stops talking,
Okay.
I got to ask a question about that. So, what are some of the other challenges in the banking sector with Saudi Arabia when it comes to business continuity management? We talked during the break that sometimes the scenarios and the things that we look at here in Canada is going to be different than what you look at in Saudi Arabia. So can you kind of talk about some of the challenges and the different things that you look at over there?
Well, some of the challenges, let's say, is related to the sector itself. We are talking about a vital sector required to be available 24/7.
Hmm.
So the type of readiness for that sector is different than, let's say, the education sector or any other sectors in the government. And that requires to have higher maturity level all the time. That requires a lot of preparation, a lot of type of tests I don't believe that other sectors are doing. One of the tests that we conduct on an annual basis called full failover exercise, where we need to uh, measure the readiness of the disaster recovery site by having all the banking applications and all the banking product and services failed over to the alternative data center. That requires a lot of effort. It is not an easy exercise at all, and especially when you combine it with another type of test. So we end up with a very comprehensive combined test that involves multiple scenarios: relocating employees, simulating a DDoS attack, an example, and failing over applications, and activating crisis management, activating call tree, and all of this in one time. So such exercise, it requires months of preparation to ensure that we are engaging and communicating the right people, the right messages, everyone have the same understanding, what would be the pass or fail criteria, what would be excluded from the test. So all of these challenges, I don't believe it is in all other sectors. Maybe some sectors they have it. Maybe some other sectors like uh, military or health, they have another type of exercises. But I believe we are in a mature environment. The challenges that we have is not an easy.
I've done those tests, those ones before. We had the biggest one had almost 200 people, 3 countries, one, two, three, four, 5 different data centers. And it was exactly as you just described, getting all these groups involved, flipping everything over to an alternate site, getting it to work, test the data, uh, while ensuring that our production environment continued on.
Yeah,
So
and
it's
and
not
and and
easy
and and you don't want to end up with a crisis while you are trying to
while you're
prove something.
testing.
Yeah, so having the proper shutdown, it requires time, ensuring that your data is backed up and you are not missing, you don't mess up something else
Yeah,
and you create another issue.
yeah, we had a couple of those, shall we say. Luckily, the outside world never knew because we separated production, but we had some challenges with that.
Yeah.
And you're right, it is not easy to do. What other kind of challenges are there? Because that's the testing, but I'm just kind of wondering what kind of things do you look at to plan for? And during our break, I mentioned that we in Canada we're looking at things like snowstorms and forest fires, but that's climate. That's a climate difference between the two. So I'm wondering what kind of things do you look at in Saudi Arabia?
Well, we consider the climate change, of course, and we consider all type of crisis. We do have issues related to power outage or to the flood, especially the flood. And I remember during the last 15 years, um, Riyadh as a capital city, Jeddah, one of the main cities that we have, it got flooded. The quantity of rain that we had, it wasn't normal at all, and everything was flooded. You see cars are swimming in the street. So we talk about the same type of crisis that could happen in Canada or in Europe or in America or anywhere else. But other type of challenges that we are facing, not related to crisis, related to the business continuity world itself. I guess the entire world are sharing the same type of challenges related to the culture and how people are looking to the business continuity. Maybe that was increasing a little bit after COVID, booming happening for the business continuity world in Saudi Arabia. Everyone was looking who are certified in this field, and people start taking the certified people from the banking sector, which was equipped very good with a lot of certified people. So we see the government, the ministry, XYZ is taking our colleague, taking our friends from here and there. And I found that the number of certified people is less than 500 Saudis. I'm talking about let's say a reliable data from DRI and BCI, because there is no reliable data that can give you a static number about lead implementer, ISO lead implementer, or ISO lead auditor, because such certificate it can be taken from a lot of institutes.
Yeah.
So this is one of the challenges, that the booming and the shortage in the market, the confidence that people felt after COVID, they think that we don't need the business continuity anymore. We have dealt with COVID, so we can deal with anything else. So I'm trying to balance the understanding and emphasizing that business continuity. If we don't have it, you wouldn't be able to respond correctly to COVID. So this is one of the also big challenges that I'm facing, or we are facing here.
That's an interesting point, because I think that's happening everywhere. There are some people, and I just heard from an executive the other day who said the same thing. Well, we just went through COVID, so we're fine. We can do anything. And I'm, well, you can have a cyber attack. What's business continuity going to do? I don't know.
Exactly.
It's like, come on.
We need to balance it. We don't want overconfident, and we don't want to underestimate.
Yeah, I think it's always these big swings from one side to the other, when we need to be right in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
Well, we've come to the end of our show, Khaled. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And providing some insights on what's going on in Saudi Arabia in the banking sector and business continuity management. It seems, we're a world away and we've got the same challenges. Interesting.
That's true.
You're on the other side of the planet, and yet we share a lot of the same things and frustrations that are going on right now.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for your wonderful show. It became one of my favorite shows, really, that I enjoyed. Even while driving the car, I turn off the YouTube and just hearing your lovely topics.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's always good to meet a fan. I really do appreciate you sharing your time and expertise. It was great. I'm glad you reached out, and we got you on the show to talk about this. It's always good to hear what's happening in other parts of the world. So it was an enjoyable chat. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
And everybody watching and listening, Stay prepared, everybody.
If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.